We often have gotten stuck in this cycle of like more is better with content, but now more than ever, it's the complete opposite. So it's important that each episode should really live on its own, should really add value on its own, and it should get people wanting more versus you delivering too much in that one episode.
You're showing up on social, posting here, there, and everywhere, but nothing really feels like it's sticking. In today's episode, I sat down with video marketing coach and founder of Shine with Natasha and Shine Studio, Natasha Pierre, to talk about one of the smartest ways to shift that, creating your very own signature content series. If your content needs a little structure, a little dash of strategy, and, well, more sales to come out of it, this is the conversation to listen to today. Let's jump in.
So I always like to draw the through line that a content series, a video series, is essentially creating your own Netflix show, but on social media. So instead of doing one piece of content where you're talking about a topic in depth, maybe have a few main points, you're maybe just posting it once and you're not ever really touching it again, we're taking that one topic, that idea, that theme, and we're actually stretching it out into individual episodes. So there's really something that really ties them together. Maybe there's a similar format, a similar topic, or maybe they build on each other, but each episode essentially covers a different idea or a different main point or a different story or a continuation of that common theme that the series is really anchored by. You can really go deep with your audience. You can increase retention and engagement. People are coming back ready, but also we think of that like binge-worthy effect that we want new people to have when they're experiencing our profiles. You don't want someone to find a video, love it, and then can't find anything else similar to it, and series are a really great way to easily create that bingeable experience.
If you had to narrow it down to like the 3 ingredients that make a very successful series, what would you say those are?
I think the first thing is making sure you're getting hyper specific on a series that is relevant to your goal. Because I think oftentimes people think, okay, I'm going to make a series, so let me just like put together a how to do this or weekly vlogs or whatever the idea is, without really thinking of like what is the objective and the goal of the series that we're creating. Sometimes it could be to grow your email list. Sometimes it could be to nurture your current audience, which can be different than nurturing an audience that literally doesn't know who you are, like attracting totally new people. Maybe you're wanting to re-engage your audience. Like you feel like your engagement is like total flops and you're like, I just want to get people commenting and interacting, like seeing my content again, which is also very different than I just want them to convert and take an action. So I feel like the more specific you get with your goal, the more specific you can actually get with your series, which really helps you get better results. I think another one is taking that topic and making it signature. I think we're starting to see more and more series. Content in general is saturated, right? So what makes your series different and interesting and engaging? And sometimes it can be that hook you say. Maybe it's the name of it, which I feel like was what a lot of people get caught up on, but it's not the only way. Maybe it's how you edit it or how you deliver it. So what's that signature thing that people will look at and not only be drawn to, but I literally identify it as like you. And I think that kind of leads to the next point of making sure you don't overstuff your series. I feel like because we're kind of stretching out your idea, we're having more episodes, more content dedicated to that theme, I often find that people feel like then they kind of add more and more and more and they never really stop, right? So it's important that each episode should really live on its own, should really add value on its own, and it should get people wanting more versus you delivering too much in that one episode. And often what I tell people is like your idea for a series and the few bullet points you have, you probably can stretch those out even more. We often have gotten stuck in this cycle of like more is better with content, but now more than ever, it's the complete opposite of the more micro, the more specific, the less overwhelmed people are with your content, the better it's going to serve them and really the better it's going to do.
People listening are probably like, well, my goal is probably to grow their audience or to get that audience onto their email list, which would ultimately grow their business. So when that's the goal, how do we reverse engineer from there to the topic idea?
I think you can do it either way. So you can reverse engineer of like using that to then get the topic, which I'll talk about. But you also can take like the ideas you already have. Maybe it's existing content. Maybe it's like the ideas that are in your like brainstorming bank that I think we all have. And chances are you can take that idea, like for example, for me, video content systems, and I can think, okay, if people literally don't know who I am, they don't even care who I am, they've never heard my approach on systems, what are the 4 essential things that I want them to know that's going to make the biggest impact? And how can I make sure that in each episode of that I'm not just going into, okay, here's how to have a content day, but I'm actually being like, here's what a content day is, here's why it's a system you need, and I'm going like a little bit deeper because I'm assuming they don't have that prior knowledge, which I think a lot of people skip when it comes to getting new eyeballs. That's one way you can do it if you already have an idea. The other way you can do it is really like knowing the audience you're trying to reach and go through like all of the questions they might have. What are they currently experiencing? What problems do they have? Even think of your current audience if they're aligned with what you're wanting to attract more of, and think about like what are those questions you're getting all of the time. I find those are kind of the best ways to get a series because I feel like that's really those topics you can really go deep with. I think the other thing is thinking about a core framework or philosophy or approach or like the thing that you're like, this is the hill I am going to stand on firmly and will yell from the rooftops, right? Thinking of what are those signature things maybe you teach in your programs or you work with clients on or that you're actively doing in your own business that you can then use to automatically get that signature effect in your series. And I find that you can get a lot of really easy ideas from there. And really the next one is like look at your insights and analytics, like what emails, what content, what things that you're already creating that aren't a series are doing well. And can you go deeper? Can you spread that out into multiple episodes? Because you already kind of have the social proof that it's going to essentially probably do well in a series application.
We've given a lot of examples talking about series being done through social media, but where are some other places that people could park their series and then maybe even use that content, repurpose it onto social media?
When it comes to any type of social media content, video content, so carousels, reels, TikToks, shorts, all the short form content really works. LinkedIn, I think is a great place for that. I think there's different formats. Of course, video is always gonna be my preference, but articles, newsletters on LinkedIn can work really well for a series. I know podcasts and YouTube kind of longer form content kind of mesh and meld together nowadays, but I think it's a really great way to get people like coming back to listen and increasing that listenership. And of course, like I think email series are really, really fun. It's kind of a fun way to change things up if you're constantly doing the same thing all the time. And it can be kind of like a newsletter, like a signature newsletter or format that can technically be its own series, or it can be all month long in June, we're going to talk about B-roll. Like that could be a theme for you. And I feel like once you kind of start thinking of content in a way of a series, it kind of makes you want to make everything a series because it can
Yeah.
really help you stay consistent. It kind of gives you accountability. It gives your audience something to look forward to. Like it kind of is a win-win across the board. So really any content format can do really well as a series.
How often do you recommend somebody does a series in their business?
I find that quarterly is like the perfect in between, unless you fall into the category of you feel like continuous series just work really well for you. I feel like a lot of the like recipe niches or those types of things, like you can constantly have a series going because it's just like never ending. I don't think that applies to every industry and niche, so it can kind of make series feel like a fun special thing. But when I think about like how I kind of approach it for myself or for my clients, on YouTube, I like to have like one series a quarter that typically goes for like 4 episodes or a month. And then kind of the same thing for shorter form content is maybe I'll have like one series within a quarter. So it's kind of like a good way to balance things. And I find that could be like a good sweet spot.
I'm wondering for people who are maybe considering creating a series on a long form platform like YouTube, a podcast, or maybe even email, whatever. How do we take that long form and make it successful on places like Instagram, for example?
Let's like use like a podcast, for example. Let's say you're recording audio and video just from one episode. You can easily pull a video clip that features a really great moment from that series. And something I like to do when I'm actually outlining my YouTube series is I like to already kind of think of those mic drop moments of like, oh, when I'm mentioning this really big mistake people make when it comes to systems, I'm already kind of formatting it for short form. So it kind of makes sense and really hits on that platform too. The other one is audio, which is actually a format that works really well for your content.
Yeah.
Is essentially we take the audio from your podcast or something like that, and we'll essentially put B-roll video clips on top of that. So it almost looks like a vlog, kind of like a storytelling vibe. Sometimes the visuals are related, sometimes they're maybe like sub-related or kind of not related at all, but related to your brand. And it kind of gives a different visual element that I feel like really feels organic to Reels without you having to record anything new. Everything's already existing. So I feel like that's definitely one of our favorite formats to use for you. And I feel like it can apply to a lot of different industries, especially if you have lots of B-roll. And then from there, it's really like taking all of the copy. So whether it's a transcript, whether it's your outline, whether it's any like assets you've created to go with the series, like maybe promotional emails or things like that, you can use that to pull copy for carousel slides or copy for story slides, which is one of my favorite places to actually promote my series on YouTube. It can be for captions, it can be for text overlay videos. So you could easily get like 3 different surfaces just by pulling the copy. And kind of from there, I mean, we kind of have generated 5 pieces of content from one YouTube series episode, but of course you could multiply and multiply that even more so. And I think kind of a follow-up question people might be thinking is like, am I repurposing to promote the series? Am I
Yeah.
using it to as like nurture content? It goes back to what your goal is. If your goal is that you want to run that series up and you want as many people to listen to it, maybe like opt in from it, then of course you want to make sure you're driving people to go to that episode or to that entire series. But for some instances, it might not be the goal. Your goal might be like, I want to make the most of my time and my content that I'm already creating, and I want it to nurture, engage, like connect with my current audience without them even having to go over to the series. That might just be a bonus. And it could be a mixture of both. Maybe you want maybe a few pieces of content to promote the episode, and maybe you want some that are just going to just nurture and take care of your audience. So you can kind of choose and pick your journey from there.
I'm curious, you mentioned about how you have a series and then you're promoting it in your stories in a certain way and you're like, that's what's working well. So what are you seeing? I mean, if you want to bless us and give us a little overview of what's working well on stories right now, I think that would be helpful. But also
Yeah.
then what's working well with promoting your series on stories.
I feel like stories have changed. And so I think if you're holding on to the old ways that you've liked creating or consuming stories, or you're looking to the people with millions of followers that just dump anything on their stories and it probably will do well, it just won't do as well in 2025. That's just the reality of it, which is honestly across the board. And I think when we can
Yeah.
embrace that more as like people that are creating content for our businesses, it just makes things so much more chill. How people are consuming stories is kind of leading to a lot of things we talked about with series of like less is more. Less visually, less copy, less talking, less everything, because people are so just overwhelmed with everything they're consuming. And so instead of posting like 10 talking head videos that people are maybe watching the captions for, they don't want to listen the whole way or whatever that is, we're wanting to take a very specific idea, a very specific story, a very specific thing you actually want to share that you're actually thinking through when posting your stories. I think because stories are known for being like a little more off the cusp, they expire, they're like supposed to be like a little bit more chill. I think people have gotten to the habit of anything I'm thinking of, just blah, I'm just like literally going to put it on stories. And while I think you can candidly share things, I think there needs to be a little bit more intention behind how you share it. I like to go to photos and B-roll clips I already have in my camera roll that are kind of like standard brand images for me in a way. And then I use those. I'm very actually never posting in real time stuff. And so that's really just a few things that I'm seeing is like really thinking of like, what is a story? What is the idea that you want to share? Picking maybe it's one really great slide, which is really when you're going to get the most views, or if it's a few slides, that's really going to connect deeper with your most engaged audience, maybe not reach as many people, get as many views. That's what I found to be the most effective. I did just do a video, an episode on stories and what I think's changed, how I think about them. So if you kind of like want to see more of what I'm sharing, sharing, that can definitely be like an extra little resource.
Yeah, that'll be helpful. We'll link to that down below. Is there anything else I haven't asked you about series today? Anything you think I missed that people really need to know about?
The one thing that maybe we didn't mention was that a series doesn't just need to be talking. I think
Mm,
that's often what people default to. I know we've talked about some different formats like email or carousels, but I think even when we're thinking of video, like a series can be totally voiceover. A series can even be very simple text overlay B-roll style, right?
hmm
Where maybe it's like a weekly thing that you're sharing, or even like we talk about recipes and outfits, like outfits that you shared for that week or a roundup. So I think often we think we need to be talking, or it has to be really produced, or it has to be long, or it has to be even just on YouTube. I get that all the time, like, oh, series are just for YouTube. But really, it can be any format. It's really just that theme that ties multiple, main points of the episodes together.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking of Natalie Borton on Substack every month does a series where she shows you with a calendar what outfits she wore that month with little
Mm,
visual, like there's a little like sticker of her outfit on every single
yes.
day on the calendar. And then she at the very bottom of it will tell you which pieces she wore the most that month, like because she's also known for like repeating and keeping wardrobe pretty simple and tight. So yeah, that's just what came to mind. Well, thank you so much. You've taught everyone so much today. Where would you like people to go find you and connect with you and work with you and all the things?
YouTube's a great place to start because I have not only like a mini series on series, like I have the case study if you want to dive deeper into it, more on series, but I also have the series that we mentioned, the Simple Video System series, so you can kind of see it in action. And then I also have a workshop that I hosted all about how to DIY your own signature video series. So if you're interested in that, you'll essentially create it start to finish and be ready to post it after.
I'll make sure I link to everything down below. Thank you so much, Natasha. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks. This was fun.